Now, I started off, as I said, being a completely dispassionate scientist and not having any, or trying very hard not to have any preconceived ideas. Was it Agent Orange? Was it combat? Are they all just making it up? Is it all a compensation issue? Are they just trying to get money out of the government? So I came along as a dispassionate scientist, but after many years of work and looking at these things, I've come quite around to a totally different viewpoint. That in fact you can't send people to war and then expect to get off scot-free people. And we simply don't know at this point what the prevalence of these disorders are going to be in the next generation. I now know what they are in the Vietnam generation. And at the first wave of assessments, 20% of diggers had a post-traumatic stress disorder. By the time we looked at them 15 years later, that figure had gone up to 28%. When we looked at the issues in their wives, again we've got half of the women on who have a diagnosis of depression.
We use the term transmission in your presentation.
Yes.
Is there a sense that PTSD is in some way rubbing off on wives and other family members of veterans?
Yes, yes. We find that the only risk factor from a mountain of information that is collected, where you try to sieve down and work out what are the most important drivers of the variable you're interested in. When you look at wives' PTSD, the only predictor is veterans' PTSD. So if a veteran's got a PTSD, his wife is more likely to have one too.
There are several risk factors to indicate PTSD amongst the veteran, including combat, traumatic events and duration.
Yes.
Considering those factors in the Vietnam cohort, what are we likely to see coming out of Iraq and Afghanistan?
It's like looking through a fog, but the lessons are becoming clearer, I think. That in Vietnam we found the highest rate of PTSD occurred among the bomb disposal units, the Royal Australian Engineers, the sappers if you like, the guys who went down tunnels with a pistol and a torch looking for bombs, the guys who had to do the mine clearances and defuse explosive devices when they were found. Now that's a lot of the action that's going on right now in Oregon province and has been for a couple of years. If that's the case, then the people who are the sappers in Afghanistan are going to be exactly the same position as the people who are the sappers in Vietnam, and therefore I would expect that there would be PTSD evident in that group.
A higher rate of PTSD?
A higher rate of PTSD than you might otherwise expect, yep.
Are people looking at the rates of PTSD in Iraq and Afghanistan and expecting this higher prevalence?
Not yet, no, there isn't any research.
You've called it a flood, and Major General Cantwell's called it a wave of PTSD that is expected to wash up on Australian shores with the returning Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. Is our treatment working here?
I think our treatment is just as good as anywhere else in the world. And PTSD, I think we haven't yet got the definitive treatment. These cases of PTSD, particularly from war veterans where they've been going on for such a long time in the older generations, or where they've been going on in the face of people who are action men and people who are not wanting to be seen as weak, even to their own families, and certainly not to their peers. That's one of the major barriers, I think, to people seeking treatment. One of the things that we do know is that people with psychological problems don't stay in the army very long. It's not as if they're consciously weeded out, but it certainly affects their career prospects if they own up to a problem. Now we do know that if you take a civilian off the street, it takes a year to turn him into a soldier. And very often, certainly what we're told by the veterans is that to go the other way, they get 2 one-hour lectures, and most of that is all about how to claim compensation from Vets Affairs.
Is that enough?
That's nowhere near enough. How do you deprogram somebody who has been reinforced for using lethal violence?